It began like any other day. A young traveler checking into a downtown hotel, a historic building, old but alive with the quiet motion of passing guests, flickering lights, and the silence that lingers in places people forget to look. She moved through the lobby unnoticed. She wasn't running. She wasn't afraid. Not yet. Her name was Elisa Lam. She had arrived in Los Angeles alone. A student. A daughter. A curious soul exploring the city one post at a time. But soon, those posts stopped. Her phone went silent. And Elisa was gone. What happened next would freeze the internet in place. A surveillance clip. A girl in an elevator. Pressing buttons that don't respond. Leaning out. Looking side to side. Stepping out. Stepping back in. Her hands move in unnatural ways. As if speaking to something we cannot see. As if trying to escape something we cannot name. There was no scream. No alarm. Just her and the camera and the seconds ticking by. And then nothing. For days, her whereabouts remained a mystery. The hotel kept running. Guests showered, brushed their teeth, filled their cups from the tap, unaware of what floated just beyond the surface. When the truth was finally uncovered, it would horrify the city, stun the nation, and leave behind a trail of questions that no one, not the police, not the hotel, not her family, could fully answer. Who was Elisa Lam really running from? Was she running at all? And how did her body end up in a place that should have been impossible to reach? 10 years later, the footage is still studied, still debated, still feared. And the answers? They remain locked behind a door that may never open again. To this day, the truth remains buried beneath speculation, shadows, and silence. Elisa Lam was 21 years old, a university student from Vancouver, Canada, with a restless spirit and a soft-spoken presence. She was enrolled at the University of British Columbia, but she hadn't been attending classes regularly. The reasons weren't entirely clear, but like many her age, Elisa was still finding her way, navigating independence, expectation, and mental health challenges she spoke about openly. She wrote often. She was the kind of person who processed her world through words. Her Tumblr blog, titled Nouvelle Nouveau, became a quiet window into her thoughts. It was filled with personal reflections, photographs, quotes, and sometimes vulnerable posts that hinted at the storm she was quietly managing. Fashion intrigued her. Books consumed her. She had a way of expressing uncertainty with grace and loneliness with honesty. Elisa wasn't hiding her struggles. She was documenting them, not for attention, but perhaps for connection or understanding. In early 2013, Elisa made a decision that would change the course of her life. She set off on a solo trip down the west coast of the United States, a journey she'd long wanted to take. Her parents were hesitant, but supportive. Elisa promised to check in daily, to post, to call, to let them know she was okay. She began in San Diego. She visited the zoo, took photographs, wrote about her adventures, and shared small moments online. She smiled in the pictures. She looked present, hopeful. From there, she traveled north, eventually arriving in Los Angeles. She checked into a hotel downtown, a building once known as the Cecil. She had no way of knowing its history, no reason to know about the decades of darkness that clung to the building's name, the overdoses, the suicides, the murders, the men who had once walked its halls. Elisa was assigned a shared room on the 5th floor, a hostel-style setup the hotel used for solo travelers. But within days, her roommates complained about her behavior. Unspecified comments were made to staff, enough that Elisa was moved to a private room. The nature of those complaints remains vague to this day. Some describe her as acting strangely. Others said she was friendly but distracted. What we know is this: Elisa had struggled for years with bipolar disorder and depression. She had been prescribed several medications and was under care back home. Her family was aware of her condition. They were concerned, but Elisa was committed to managing it. Despite whatever may have been happening internally, she kept moving forward. She visited a local bookstore, spoke kindly to the clerk, asked about books to take home to her family. That employee would be among the last confirmed people to see her alive. On January 31st, 2013, Elisa Lam failed to check in with her parents. Her usual call never came. Her daily post was never made. Her luggage remained in her room. Her laptop, her wallet, her medication, all untouched. No one heard from her that day, or the next. Hotel staff hadn't noticed anything unusual at first. Guests came and went. Housekeeping continued. The front desk logged guests in, handed out keys, answered questions. But outside the building, a family thousands of miles away was becoming frantic. Elisa's parents reported her missing to the Los Angeles Police Department. Flyers were printed. Officers arrived at the hotel. Still, there were no answers. Just a quiet hallway, an empty room, and the growing silence of a girl who had simply stopped existing in the spaces she once filled. Elisa Lam was scheduled to check out of the Cecil Hotel on February 1st, 2013. But she didn't. There was no checkout call. No sign of her in the lobby. Her key was not returned. She was simply gone. Her parents, back in Vancouver, were already on edge. Elisa had promised to call them every single day of her trip. That call never came. And now, the hotel had no record of her departure. They contacted the Los Angeles Police Department, who responded by launching a formal missing persons investigation. Detectives visited the hotel, questioned employees, handed out flyers, and reviewed check-in logs. Her belongings were still in the room. Her clothes, prescriptions, wallet, laptop, all left behind undisturbed. There were no signs of a struggle, no messages, no clues, just an empty room with her world still in it. The search began quietly. Officers canvassed the surrounding neighborhood. A few hotel guests reported brief sightings, nothing definitive. Security footage showed her entering the building on earlier days, but after January 31 SD, nothing. Days passed, then a week. By the second week of February, the hotel was still operating. Guests continued to stay on upper floors. Some began to complain about something unusual: low water pressure, strange color, odd taste. Maintenance was sent to investigate. They checked the plumbing, the pumps, the rooftop water tanks. That's when the story began to fracture into something far darker. But before the truth could come to light, something else surfaced. On February 13th, the LAPD made the decision to release a piece of surveillance footage. A single video clip pulled from one of the hotel security cameras. It had been taken from inside one of the Cecil Hotel's elevators. The timestamp was blurry. The footage was grainy, but it was clear who the girl was. Elisa Lam. She enters the elevator slowly, alone, wearing a red hoodie and black shorts. Her movements seem hesitant, cautious. She leans forward and presses several buttons, floor after floor. Then she steps back. The door doesn't close. She peeks out, quickly, as if someone might be there. She hides in the corner, then steps out entirely. Her body language changes. Her hands move in frantic gestures, arms twisting, palms open, fingers splayed, as if she's explaining something, or reacting to something we can't see. At times, it almost looks like she's playing. Other times, like she's pleading. Eventually, she disappears out of view. The elevator door closes, then opens again, then closes, then opens again. No one else is seen. The video was uploaded to the LAPD's YouTube channel in hopes of identifying witnesses. But what followed was something no one could have expected. The footage went viral. Within hours, it had been shared across forums, social media, and news outlets. Millions watched, frame by frame, looking for signs, looking for logic. Some were convinced she was having a mental health episode. Others believed she was reacting to someone stalking her just outside the frame. Some insisted it was something paranormal, a ghost, a curse. The legacy of the Cecil Hotel coming back to life. Dozens of theories took shape. Millions of opinions were voiced. But the only person who could explain what happened in that elevator had yet to be found. After the footage by unknown forces tied to the hotel's haunted history? Of course, none of this was supported by physical evidence. But that didn't stop the theories from spreading. Shortly after Elisa's body was found, internet users had unearthed videos of Morbid performing music in dark. They decided he was guilty. Online forums called him a murderer. YouTube channels made videos accusing him. Death threats flooded his inbox. He lost job opportunities. He was admitted to a psychiatric facility. But Morbid had never even been in Los Angeles at the time of Elisa's disappearance. He had an alibi. He had flight records. He had nothing to do with her. But the damage had already been done. The internet had found its villain. And once the accusation took hold, truth was no longer a requirement. What started as a mystery had become a spectacle. And the people caught in its wake, Elisa's family, Morbid, the hotel workers, the detectives, were left holding the weight of a story that no longer felt theirs. A story that was now being retold by strangers, edited, distorted, repeated, and always unfinished. Today, over a decade later, the official record remains unchanged. Elisa Lam's death is still ruled an accidental drowning. The LAPD has closed its case. No criminal investigation remains active. The Cecil Hotel, after years of negative attention, rebranded under a new name, Stay on Main. Its management changed. Its online presence was cleaned. But the building's reputation never quite faded. It remains known by what it was, not by what it became. Some rooms were renovated. Others remained sealed. The rooftop tanks were replaced. But the shadow of what happened there never left. Elisa's Tumblr blog, Nouvelle Nouveau, is still online. Its posts, once personal notes written for no one in particular, are now read by thousands. Her final thoughts, buried between quotes, reflections, and brief bursts of humor, live on, they have become something else now. A digital memorial, a window into a mind that the world tried to analyze, but never truly knew. And the story of Elisa Lam has become more than a mystery. It has become a mirror held up to our fascination with darkness, with footage, with things that don't quite add up. The internet didn't just help spread awareness. It also helped distort it, turn it into something consumable, editable, profitable. Theories, timelines, thumbnails, documentaries, reaction videos. Her final moments were rewatched not for clarity, but for intrigue. Her story was no longer about who she was. It became about what she became. And that question, what happened to Elisa Lam, has now been asked more times than anyone will ever know. But somewhere in that repetition, the human being at the center of it all was slowly lost. Elisa wasn't a puzzle to be solved. She was a daughter, a student, a writer, a young woman searching for something in herself. And what she found in Los Angeles will never be fully known. Her case stands not just as an unsolved mystery, but as a cautionary tale about the limits of evidence, the danger of obsession, and the space where truth ends and stories begin. Elisa Lam was not just a headline. She was not just a face caught in a grainy security video. She was a daughter, a dreamer, and a young woman chasing something new in a city far from home. She kept journals. She wrote blog posts. She read books. She loved art. She laughed with her sister. She worried about the future. She wanted to understand the world and her place in it. Instead, she became the center of a mystery that refuses to be solved. What began as a missing persons case became a viral phenomenon. The story twisted and unraveled across news cycles, message boards, and conspiracy videos. But at the heart of it was always a real human being. Someone who left behind a grieving family and 1,000 unanswered questions. How did she reach the tank? Why was the footage altered? Why was her phone never found? So many parts of her final days remain hidden behind silence, sealed doors, and timelines that don't quite add up. And so we ask, what do you believe happened to Elisa Lam? Was it a tragic accident, a devastating turn in a young woman's battle with mental illness? Or is there something else, something darker, deeper, that we may never truly understand? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. We read every one. And if you believe in stories that deserve to be told, in voices that shouldn't be forgotten, subscribe for more cases that still need answers. Because sometimes the truth is buried, not in the evidence, but in what we choose to remember and what we refuse to forget.